In this video, I'll discuss the 4 pillars that will contribute directly to your personal financial success. And we're starting right now. Hey guys, welcome to another video from the Keystone Financial Academy. My name is Elliot, and if you're new to this channel, I invite you to join our community by subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. So as a financial advisor and educator, I often get asked, what are the steps to financial success? What do I have to focus on to get there? So let's talk about that. Think of your financial life as a table with 4 legs. You need all 4 of these legs so your table doesn't get wobbly and fall over. And if one of these legs is weak or missing, that's exactly what's going to happen. So what are these legs or pillars? Assuming you already have a source of income via a job or a business that you own, these 4 legs or pillars are eliminating debt, saving your money, investing your money, and protecting your money. If these 4 pillars of your financial life are in good shape, you will find personal financial success. Let's go ahead and go over the details, and feel free to take notes or pause the video because there will be a lot of valuable information presented here. The first pillar is eliminating debt, which in turn is made up of 2 topics: how to avoid getting into debt and how to pay back debt that you already have as quickly as possible. Now, before I get into the details of both, it's worth mentioning that not all debt is the same. There is good and bad debt. Good debt is generally secured, has a low interest rate, and helps you financially, with the best example of that is a mortgage for a house. You're using this debt to acquire a home, which is usually an appreciating asset and generally a wise investment. A bad debt has a high interest rate, is usually unsecured, and the best example of that is a credit card. So how do you avoid getting into debt? Here are some very basic common sense ideas for some of the most typical types of debt that people get into. For mortgage debt, the best advice is to buy a smaller, more affordable house, save up a 20% down payment to avoid PMI or private mortgage insurance, and shop mortgage loans carefully to get the best possible rate, which should be a lot easier in today's very low interest rate environment. For auto loan debt, the best advice is to avoid new cars and the massive amount of depreciation that comes with purchasing them, and instead getting historically reliable used ones that are 2 to 3 years old. And just like with mortgage, try to shop for the best auto loan rates, which should be easy to do if you have good credit, and especially in today's low interest rate environment. For student loan debt, the best advice is to attend lower cost community colleges or state schools for the first 2 years of your education. And in turn, if you have a small child, establish a 529 savings plan for their college expenses early on in their life. For credit card debt, the major advice is of course to avoid dependency on credit cards. Only have one card and do your best to pay off the monthly balance in full instead of carrying it from month to month. To avoid medical debt, which by the way is the #1 cause of bankruptcies in the US, always strive to have some sort of medical coverage, either through your employer or the Affordable Care Act, a health savings account, or some other method, always keeping in mind that some or partial coverage is better than no coverage at all. Finally, to avoid tax debt, which is mostly an issue for freelancers and the self-employed, be sure to pay down your quarterly estimated taxes and not wait till all the way at the end of the year to pay your entire tax debt. There's a good chance you won't be able to afford the entire amount and you'll end up owing taxes. Now, if you already have a significant amount of debt, how do you get out of it as fast as possible? There are a number of techniques to speed up repayment. 2 very well-known ones include debt stacking and the debt snowball. Debt stacking is when you arrange debts by interest rate, high to low. You then aggressively pay off the highest interest rate debt while maintaining the rest with minimum payments. This method will save the most money in the long run as it tackles the highest interest rate debt first. Debt snowball is when you arrange debts by amounts low to high. You then pay off the smallest debt first and then move on to the next lowest amount. This method is most psychologically satisfying because you may be able to quickly get rid of some of the smaller debts and feel like you're making good progress, but it isn't necessarily the fastest, nor will it save you the most money. Another technique is the balance transfer, and this applies mostly to credit credit cards. You transfer balances from a card you have to a new card with promotional zero interest rate and pay off as much of the balance as you can until interest kicks in on the new card, then transfer balances again. This takes some effort but does give you a chance to pay down a high interest credit card balance with zero interest, at least for the time of the promotional offer. Finally, there are consolidation loans. These consolidate all high interest loans into one low interest personal loan, and in today's low interest rate environment, this may be a good idea to look into. The second pillar is saving your money, and this in turn is also made up of two topics. The first is about establishing rainy day savings, and the second is about budgeting and lowering your daily living expenses. As far as savings, it can't be overstated how important it is to establish a rainy day savings fund, so you don't have to rely on expensive credit to pay to fix your car or some other such emergency. You should dedicate about 10% of your post-tax net income to savings and save up at least a few months of living expenses to create that financial cushion. When saving up money, it's not advisable to use regular bank savings accounts due to the extremely low interest rates that they offer. Instead, use a money market account or an MMA, or also you can use CDs or certificates of deposit. So now let's talk about budgeting. That's the second part of the saving money equation. And here it helps to see what financial advisors recommend as your spending limits for a variety of personal expenses. If your own spending exceeds the recommended amount, see where you can aggressively cut costs. So here's the breakdown. Your housing should be no more than 30% of your gross pre-tax monthly income. If it's more, then consider a smaller, less expensive house or apartment, or possibly getting roommates to share the cost. Transportation should be no more than 15% of your net post-tax monthly income. If it is more, you may be driving a car that is more than you can comfortably afford. Food and personal items should be no more than 25% of your net post-tax income. If it is more, it's possible that your food expenditure is the cause, and the typical advice is to shop in bulk and prepare your own meals. Finally, clothing should be no more than 5% of your net post-tax income, and entertainment and recreation, or E&R, should be no more than 5 to 10% of your net post-tax income, which has been fortunately easier to stick to due to the pandemic closing up just about every venue where you can go spend any money at. Now, there are some software out there that can help you budget. Some examples include Quicken, Mint, You Need a Budget, Personal Capital, and Ace Money Lite. Finally, consider the technique of zero-based budgeting. This is essentially when you assign a purpose to every dollar in your income stream. Whether it's bills or savings or spending, every dollar is accounted for until you get to zero. This ensures that no money is unaccounted for and is a great way to keep track of what you're spending. Okay, let's now turn our attention to the third pillar of financial success, and that is investing your money. The reason investing is such a critical part of your financial success is because this is the only way to make your money grow. And indeed, the stock market has been the greatest source of wealth for mankind in the last 100 years. And when it comes to investing, it's not a question of if, but really a question of how. So if you've never invested, how do you approach dipping your toes in the water? This is a question that's often asked of financial advisors. The very first step is to see if your employer has a 401k or similar plan that you can participate in. If they do, and especially if your employer contributes to it, you should take them up on it. Also, look into an employer-sponsored individual retirement account, or IRA, or a Roth IRA. Even if your employer doesn't have these, you can open IRAs on your own with a broker. You're allowed to contribute up to $19,500 per year into a 401k and up to $6,000 per year into an IRA or a Roth IRA. And keep in mind that both are tax-advantaged accounts. Okay, now suppose you already contribute to a 401k or an IRA or both. What is the next logical step in investing? Most financial advisors would recommend that the next step is to invest in index funds. Index funds are mutual funds which track a stock market index, typically the S&P 500, and invest in the same stocks and in the same proportion as that index. These types of funds are hands-off, passive investments that are very low cost and give excellent returns over the long haul. You can also invest in regular managed mutual funds, but you must do some research to pick the best performance and the lowest expense expense ratios, and fees. So if you are already investing in index funds and want to broaden out your portfolio and your knowledge and experience, it is here that it would make sense to try your hand at the broader stock market and try investing in stocks, bonds, or even derivatives such as options. However, before you jump into the wider market, make sure you've maxed out your 401k, your IRA, and you have invested in index funds to the fullest extent you're able to. Don't forget there's also real estate investing, which for most people just means buying a property and flipping it and reselling it, or buying a property and fixing it up and renting it out and becoming a landlord. This of course is not for everybody, but is another major investing class and something to keep in mind. Finally, we come to the last of the pillars, and that is protecting your money. What does that actually mean? Protecting your money refers to insurance, asset protection, and estate planning that all comes together to protect what you've earned. I've already talked about the importance of having some sort of health insurance coverage, and your home and auto policies are likely a requirement, so I'll focus here on the one insurance that often gets overlooked, and that is life insurance. If you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s and just bought a house or started a family, you should at the very least consider a 10 or 20-year term policy if you are the primary wage earner in the family. What about permanent policies such as whole life, universal life, or indexed universal life? These are much more expensive and complex policies that feature an investing component and are definitely not for everybody. A good life insurance agent can help you sort out what you need in your specific situation. Something else to consider outside of insurance is asset protection, which is a set of legal and financial strategies to protect your home, property, savings, and all the rest of your assets with numerous approaches such as protective entities, equity stripping, domestic and offshore asset protection trusts, and other such instruments. Now, you will need a specialized attorney for this. It's not really a do-it-yourself activity. Finally, you should have your estate in order in case you unexpectedly die. Estate planning means creating a will, a trust, and a power of attorney. The end result of all the items I've mentioned thus far is that your money and your possessions will be protected from lawsuits, excessive taxation, and in the case of life insurance, your family will be protected with a source of income in case you're no longer around. Okay, so these are the 4 pillars of financial success. If you're able to eliminate debt, save money, live frugally, invest wisely, and protect what you own, you will be financially rewarded. None of this is really a secret, and it will take some work, discipline, and patience, but the results are well worth it, and for the vast majority of people out there, this is all very doable. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe and hit that like button, and I will see you all soon.